afternoon. My name is Allison McCarty. I am the Director of Admissions and Recruitment at Andover Newton Theological School, and I am very glad that you're joining us here in the Massachusetts Bible Society Media Center on the campus of Andover Newton Theological School. This is the second Careers That Matter broadcast. Today's subject is youth ministry. We have interviewed Dean Sarah Drummond, Professor Bob Pazmino, and two current Master of Divinity students, Brian Barnes and Kate Landis, to share their views on what it's like to be ministering to youth and what some suggestions for the best preparation might be. We would love to entertain your questions. There is a live chat feature on this broadcast. You do need to log in and register as a user at ustream.tv in order to take advantage of the live chat feature, but our admissions team is here in the studio ready to answer your questions by live chat. We will also be able to receive questions at admissions.ants.edu, and we will entertain those questions after this broadcast. So please stay with us and enjoy some words on youth ministry.
Welcome. Thank you for joining us. We are here with Dean Sarah Drummond. How are you today?
Just fine, thank you.
Good. Can you tell me about how you got started with campus ministry?
I'd be happy to, Ella. When I was in college, I had a real faith transformation. I had grown up in the United Church of Christ, went to Sunday school, had been confirmed, but I drifted from church as I got more involved in my school and sports. So it really wasn't until I went to college that I discovered faith for myself, which I now know is a really normal faith development pattern where we get to young adulthood and decide that the faith of our childhood just isn't adequate for us in our adult decision making. I went to church on campus really as a way of trying to find some grounding and some sense of home, and was swept up into the life of campus ministry and have never really left.
Do you have any advice for someone who wants to get involved with campus ministry?
First, the aspiring campus minister has to be grounded in his or her own faith. In my case, as a Christian minister, that meant knowing my Bible and knowing theology. Young people see through it when their campus minister is unsure of their faith perspective. Second, campus ministers need to be prepared in the area of pastoral care. Young adult living is tumultuous, emotional, and a campus minister who can meet the young adult where he or she is during a crisis is the only campus minister who can be effective, because crises happen in young adulthood so often. Third, campus ministers need to be entrepreneurs. They need to have strong leadership skills and even strong community organizing skills. The institutions that employ campus ministers are not ones that right now have a strong and clear infrastructure for this pluralistic, multi-faith world. Campus ministers need to be prepared to create that infrastructure and to get supporters on board with what they're trying to do.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Can you tell me a little bit about how you got started working with youth ministry?
I began working with youth ministry while I was actually teaching middle school mathematics in Boston, with working with young people in that capacity and concurrently entering the ministry at my home church. My pastor thought it would be a transition that would utilize my gifts and talents and be one that would really support the young people. And so those different dynamics make for a very challenging role. And so really a person who wants to do this type of work to really search within to see if it's their call and if they really have the patience for this type of work.
We are here with Dr. Bob Pazmino. Thank you very much for being here. Can you tell me a little bit about how you got started working with youth ministry?
Well, some of that would have to go back to my college years. I was very active in campus ministry within a varsity Christian fellowship. But after I graduated from college, I worked middle school students at a local church in the Bronx. And then folks from my wife's home church in East Harlem called me to teach youth there and to work with the youth group.
What have been some of your favorite experiences?
I'd have to say one, I still remember distinctly, Louis and Danny Cortez. Louis in particular, the older brother, would come into youth group with his arms clenched, and the message, the implicit message was, you're not going to teach me anything. And now he and his brother are active on the national scale. Louis is the president of Esperanza, which means hope in Spanish ministries, has organized the annual National Hispanic Prayer Breakfast and Conference. And here's a picture of Louis with President Obama. Wow. So on a regular basis, he's had a chance to make a difference in the lives of communities. From his clenched arms, I mean, I've seen him be involved, and having mentored him, it's been exciting to see.
So what's special about Andover Newton and youth ministry?
I think in some ways it's possible, I know in my Christian education courses, to integrate a youth interest throughout. And periodically we have courses specializing in youth ministry. We hope next year to have a course with Tony Jones, who's a key leader nationally on the emerging church movement, and exploring what's postmodern youth ministry about. The other opportunity, I think, is to study across the BTI, the Boston Theological Institute, because there are a number of specialized courses interacting in other campus settings. The other strength I would mention, and this is how Andover Newton I think is different from other schools, is the strength of the community life that's present here at Andover Newton. Our history describes us as a school of the church. So there are numerous opportunities for students to get involved with church ministries. The strength of our community life makes a difference, and that's in fact where youth hunger. They hunger for genuine relationships with adults, and also for the strength of a faith community. So I think that's lived out in our time here at the campus.
Do you have any advice for someone who might be interested in getting involved with youth ministry?
Sure, let's see. Well, take courses. We have several courses here that are interesting, that talk about developmental stages, that talk about different ways of learning and knowing, especially geared toward children and youth. So you can learn, some people are kinesthetic learners, so they need to move around. Some people are auditory learners, so they want to sit and listen and talk. That stuff has been absolutely invaluable to me, because otherwise I think that I would be very, I'll stand at the front and talk, and then I'd wonder why they weren't interested. Well, it turns out there are all these different ways to learn. We had a great New Year's Eve lock-in this year. At the stroke of midnight, we watched the ball drop on a big screen in the church, and we toasted with non-alcoholic champagne.
Of course.
And then a spontaneous dance party broke out. The music was on, and the kids just started dancing, and we just danced and danced and danced, and it was just so much fun.
Good.
It was just great. We have a great time. The good thing about youth ministry is you're not sort of stuck with the strictures that you are with regular ministry. So we go to the indoor rock climbing park, and we go kayaking, and we talk about God and nature, and we do a lot of wacky, fun things that maybe you wouldn't do if you weren't working with youth.
What would you say makes Andover Newton distinctive in terms of the way that students get involved with youth ministry?
I think our training is so practical here. We definitely have a lot of theoretical learning, but it's always, everything in every class I've taken here has come back to how will this work in real life? How does this work when you're on the street talking to someone? How does this work when you're at a social service agency? How does this work when you're in youth group or in the congregation? So everything comes back to a practical level. It's very vocationally based training, and that's why I chose Andover Newton as instead of the other schools I was looking at.
Giving us the opportunity to listen in on your interviews with 4 of the members of the Andover Newton community. It was very helpful to hear their perspectives. We do have a question submitted by email that I want to address, and this is from a student who says, I'm still in college. Is there a class I should take next year to help me get ready for youth ministry? I'm going to assume that you've spent some time already volunteering with youth in the area where you're living now. But that's going to be your best preparation for working in youth ministry is some kind of internship or volunteer experience. If you haven't already engaged in that, I encourage you to do so this coming summer to talk with your Career Services Center or Service Learning Center to identify opportunities. But there are some academic classes which I think probably would be helpful to you. In terms of if there's a psychology department on your campus, any class in adolescent psychology would probably be really helpful to you. You may be studying at a school that has some social work classes, so any social work class that can give you some sense of counseling skills, not from a licensed perspective, but just how to ask open-ended questions and get at the concerns that may be troubling youth in your area. Those would be helpful. Also, I'm thinking some classes in the field of education, perhaps, or even potentially an adolescent or young adult literature class in your English department, or a communications class if you have a business school on campus. Any of those classes would help get you ready for listening to youth and helping guide them as a ministry. Don't know if there are other questions coming in through. Thank you, Melvin. Here's another question, which is, what degree do I need in order to work in youth ministry? Really, in any nonprofit organization, you could be working as a youth minister without theological education. But in terms of a theological degree, you may want to take a look at a Master of Divinity if you're interested in being ordained as a youth minister. A Master of Divinity degree here at Andover Newton is a 3-year program. That's the professional credential that leads you to ordination by your denomination. The school does not ordain you, but your local denomination will ordain you as a youth minister. You may also want to consider a Master of Arts in Religious Education if what you're interested in is teaching. A Master of Arts in Religious Education is a teaching credential that will be recognized in churches and also in parochial schools and will help you prepare for licensure as a public school teacher as well, although there is not a licensure program here at Andover Newton. We do also have a series of short certificate programs here, which you may want to consider. And probably the two that are offered currently at Andover Newton that are most appropriate for youth ministry would be pastoral care and counseling, and then also ministerial leadership. The pastoral care will give you a grounding in talking with youth about their faith, and the ministerial leadership certificate would help you understand the organizational structure of churches and how to most effectively lead a staff and volunteer crew in order to address the needs of the youth of the church. I want to take the opportunity to point out to you, Brian Barnes is an educator, is also a youth minister. Kate Landis officially works in youth ministry. We do have graduates of Andover Newton and members of the community who are working with youth in a variety of different ways, so I thought it might be helpful to highlight those for you now. We have on the Board of Trustees the president and CEO of the YWCA of Boston. So organizations like the YWCA are caring for youth in a lay setting, but a theological education can help prepare you extraordinarily well for that. We also have students who have experience at various camps, including the Rowe Camp and Conference Center or Silver Lake in Connecticut. Students here have also been involved with youth through the performing arts, including the theater. One of our students founded an organization called Arts and Letters Community Center to help reach youth through theater and arts activities. We also have a student here who's been involved with a nonprofit organization based in Colorado Springs called Young Life. Young Life, as I said, is based in Colorado Springs. We also have students who have worked with youth through the Head Start program and through the Big Brothers Big Sisters organizations. So any variety